Elena woke up to a quiet morning, the kind of morning that made the city feel distant, and the air taste soft and empty. She had been feeling restless for weeks, trapped in a routine that felt heavier than usual. Work, errands, and the same familiar streets were starting to blur into a monotonous haze, and she needed a break. She decided to take a walk in the park, a small escape from the crowded city streets and the noise of her thoughts. The autumn air was crisp, and the leaves rustled gently under her boots. She carried her notebook with her, intending to sketch something, anything just to feel her own hand moving, to create instead of endlessly thinking. As she walked along the winding path, Elena noticed how quiet it was. The park was almost empty, the usual joggers and dog walkers nowhere in sight. The silence felt strange but comforting at the same time. She breathed deeply, letting the air fill her lungs, and for a moment, she almost forgot the loneliness that had been following her like a shadow. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw a figure she didn't expect, a massive Doberman chained near the park entrance. The dog was impressive, standing tall and alert, with a glossy black coat that reflected the weak morning sunlight. His muscles were strong and visible even from a distance, and his eyes had a strange intensity that made Elena pause. At first, she felt nervous. She had seen big dogs before, but something about this one made her heart skip a beat. Yet despite his size, there was something gentle about him, something in his gaze that didn't feel threatening but rather curious. As she hesitated, a young man appeared from behind the trees, moving cautiously toward the dog. He seemed familiar with the animal, speaking softly and moving with careful precision. "Don't worry. He's friendly. Mostly," he said with a small laugh, though his eyes scanned Elena carefully, as if making sure she would be safe. Elena nodded, her curiosity stronger than her fear. There was something about the pair, man and dog, that made the world feel lighter for a moment. The man stepped closer to the dog and unclipped the leash. Titan, the Doberman, immediately focused on Elena. Elena froze, unsure of how to react. The dog's growl was low but not aggressive, more like a warning or a test. Then, almost as if sensing her intentions, Titan slowly walked toward her and sniffed the air around her. Elena held her breath, but the dog didn't jump or lunge. He simply sat in front of her, watching her as if trying to understand her. "See, you two are already friends," the man said with a shy smile, a hint of relief in his voice. "I'm Marco. This big guy is Titan." Elena smiled, feeling a strange warmth inside her chest. There was something about Marco's tone, gentle yet proud, that made her want to know more. She reached out a hand cautiously, and Titan sniffed it once before nudging it with his nose. The gesture was small but significant. Elena could feel the connection forming, fragile yet real, between her and the massive dog. Marco laughed softly, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "He usually doesn't warm up to strangers this fast. You must have a good energy." Elena felt a blush creeping across her cheeks, a mixture of shyness and excitement. "I guess. I don't know. He just felt different." Her voice trailed off. She didn't want to overthink it. Some things, like this moment, were meant to be felt, not analyzed. Titan moved closer, brushing against her leg, and she could feel his strength, his presence. Yet he didn't seem threatening. Instead, he made her feel protected, almost like a guardian watching over her. Elena looked up at Marco, noticing the gentle pride in his eyes as he watched his dog interact with her. "He's amazing," she said quietly. "I've never met a dog like him before." Marco nodded. "He's brave, loyal, protective, and well, he's a handful sometimes." He chuckled, the sound soft and warm, like sunlight through autumn leaves. Elena laughed too, a light, nervous sound that felt good after weeks of silence. She realized she hadn't smiled like this in a long time, not truly. There was something in the way Marco and Titan moved, the ease and trust between them, that made her heart feel lighter, almost hopeful. She knelt slightly to scratch behind Titan's ears, feeling the firm, warm muscles under her hands. The dog leaned into her touch, closing his eyes briefly, content. Elena's mind drifted for a moment. She thought about how rare it was to feel this instant connection with someone or something. Titan wasn't just a dog. He was a bridge too. A world she had been missing. A world full of trust, warmth, and quiet moments that could make life feel beautiful again. Marco watched her closely, his gaze lingering longer than necessary. Elena felt a small thrill, realizing that he was watching her the same way she had been watching Titan, curious, careful, but clearly invested. She looked back at him, their eyes meeting, and in that brief exchange, something unspoken passed between them. It was subtle, but it carried weight. A shared acknowledgement of a moment that was more significant than either of them fully understood. The morning passed quickly. Birds chirped, leaves rustled, and the sunlight shifted as they walked slowly. Together, Titan staying close to Elena, occasionally glancing at Marco as if to check in. They didn't speak much, but the silence was not awkward. It was comfortable, the kind of quiet that feels rare and precious. As Elena finally prepared to leave, she realized she didn't want to. There was something pulling her back, not just to the park, but to the moments she had shared with Marco and Titan. A sense of longing stirred within her, a delicate but insistent feeling that she couldn't ignore. She said goodbye, promising herself she would return, even though she didn't fully understand why. And as she walked away, she glanced back once more. Titan watched her, his head tilted slightly, ears alert, as if he understood that this was not the end. Marco stood nearby, his expression thoughtful, almost tender, a faint smile on his lips. Elena felt a small, unexpected hope rising in her chest. The encounter had been brief, but it had left a mark, a spark that whispered to her heart, a promise that something meaningful awaited if she returned. Little did she know, that morning would change her routine, her thoughts, and perhaps even her heart. Titan's quiet bravery had opened a door she hadn't realized was closed, and Marco's gentle presence made it impossible to walk away without feeling the stirrings of something deeper, something that would pull her back to this park, to this moment, again and again. Elena couldn't stop thinking about the park, Titan, and Marco. The memory of that morning, the quiet rustle of leaves, the way Titan had cautiously approached her, and Marco's gentle eyes kept replaying in her mind. For days, she felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. She wanted to return, to see the dog again, to talk to Marco, but she hesitated. What if he didn't remember her? What if Titan wasn't friendly this time? Yet the pull was too strong to resist. By midweek, she found herself walking through the familiar streets toward the park. The air was cooler now, the scent of damp earth and fallen leaves filling her senses. She clutched her notebook to her chest, not for drawing this time, but almost as a shield against the nervous flutter in her stomach. The path looked the same, winding between tall trees with golden leaves brushing her shoulders. And then she saw him, Titan, massive and alert, standing with Marco nearby, tossing a stick for the dog. Titan's head lifted as he spotted her, ears perking up instantly. Elena froze, her heart beating faster. The dog trotted toward her with surprising grace for his size, stopping just in front of her and sitting obediently, tail wagging. Marco's eyes followed the movement, a soft smile forming on his face. "I didn't think you'd come back so soon," he said, his voice low but filled with warmth. Elena smiled nervously. I wanted to. I missed him. I missed this," she added, gesturing vaguely between them, not quite able to put the feeling into words. There was a weight in the silence, a gentle tension that made her cheeks flush. She knelt slightly to scratch Titan behind the ears, feeling the familiar ripple of his muscles under her fingers. The dog leaned into her touch, letting out a soft, happy sigh. Marco watched quietly for a moment, his hands resting loosely in his pockets. Then he stepped closer. "You seem comfortable with him," he said, as if surprised. "Not everyone can handle Titan's size and energy." Elena laughed lightly. "I don't know. He's not scary. He's kind, brave, protective." She paused, realizing her voice sounded almost dreamlike. "And somehow, he makes me feel safe." Marco's eyes softened, and a faint blush appeared on his cheeks. "He has that effect. On the right people," he said, his words deliberate but gentle. Elena felt a small thrill, a warmth creeping up her chest she hadn't expected. There was something tender in the way he said it, as if he meant more than just Titan's reaction. The three of them moved slowly along the park path, Titan padding between them with careful grace. The dog occasionally glanced at Marco, as if checking for guidance, then returned to Elena with the same protective curiosity he had shown the first day. Elena found herself talking more freely than she had in weeks. She shared small stories about her life, the little struggles and quiet victories that usually went unnoticed. Marco listened intently, nodding occasionally, but mostly he just watched her, his eyes reflecting a quiet attentiveness that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. At one point, Titan stopped suddenly, ears alert, and barked. Once, Elena followed his gaze and noticed a squirrel darting across the path. She laughed softly, her heart feeling lighter. Marco chuckled too, a low, warm sound. "He's protective, not aggressive. He's just careful about the world." Elena looked at Marco, studying him as he watched Titan. There was a quiet strength in his stance, an ease in the way he moved with the dog. She realized that his confidence wasn't loud or demanding. It was steady, calm, and comforting. "You're very patient with him," she said softly. Marco shrugged lightly. "It takes time to understand someone, or something. Titan trusts slowly, but when he does, it's real. And I trust you now." Elena felt her chest tighten. The words were simple, but the meaning was profound. She had expected a casual encounter, maybe a polite conversation, but instead she was being drawn into something unexpectedly deep. There was a connection forming here, subtle but undeniable, and she felt both nervous and excited about it. They continued walking, Titan occasionally running ahead to chase a leaf or sniff a passing dog, then returning promptly. The rhythm of their movement created a quiet intimacy. Elena noticed how Marco's gaze would occasionally drift toward her, catching her looking, and then quickly shifting away with a faint blush. There was something shy, almost tender about him that made her feel wanted, noticed, appreciated. The sun was lower now, casting long shadows across the path. The park felt almost magical, as if it existed only for them. Elena noticed the small things, Titan's gentle nudges, Marco's careful distance, the way the light caught his hair in a soft glow. Her thoughts were scattered, filled with admiration for the dog and a growing fascination with the man who owned him. Suddenly, a sound broke the calm, a loud shout from the edge of the park, followed by a crashing noise. Titan's ears twitched instantly, his body stiffening like a coiled spring. Marco's eyes sharpened, and Elena felt a thrill of fear run through her. The protective instincts between the man and the dog were obvious, unspoken but palpable. Marco moved toward the sound, Titan following closely, muscles tense and ready. Elena froze, unsure what to do. She wanted to follow, but she also wanted to stay safe. And yet she couldn't look away. There was a strange pull, a desire to witness, the bravery unfolding before her. Titan barked once, sharply, a warning. Marco's voice cut through the tension, calm but firm. "It's okay. Step back." The moment hung in the air, charged with anticipation. Eleanor's heart raced, a mix of fear, excitement, and admiration. She realized that Titan's bravery was not just about size or strength, it was about loyalty, instinct, and the quiet courage to protect someone he cared for. Marco's presence amplified that courage, his steady confidence guiding the dog and offering reassurance. After a few tense seconds, the source of the noise became clearer. Man had stumbled near the path, tripping over a hidden root. His backpack spilled, papers scattering across the ground. Titan barked again, positioning himself between the man and a shadowy figure who had approached, clearly with ill intentions. Marco stepped forward calmly, authoritative yet composed, and the tension dissolved as the situation resolved quickly. The shadowy figure retreated, and the man was unharmed. Elena's chest heaved as she processed what had just happened. She looked at Titan, then Marco, and a wave of gratitude and admiration washed over her. The dog and the man had acted instinctively, bravely, and together, they had protected a stranger without hesitation. She realized then that she was drawn not just to Titan's physical presence, but to the deep bond he shared with Marco, the trust, the teamwork, the quiet understanding. Marco exhaled and turned to Elena, a small, tired smile on his face. "He's a good dog," he said softly, almost to himself. Then he added, looking at her, "And he seems to like you too." Elena laughed lightly, feeling the tension ebb away. "I think I like him too. And you, I guess." The words slipped out before she could second-guess them, and she felt a warmth spreading in her chest. It was a delicate, tentative moment, filled with unspoken emotions. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in soft oranges and pinks, Elena realized that her visits to the park were no longer just casual walks. They had become moments of connection, of courage, and of quiet longing. She wanted to return not just for Titan, but for the man who had shown her a gentle bravery, the kind that could touch hearts and create bonds stronger than words. And as they walked together, Titan close by, Elena felt a pull she couldn't resist. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing clearly: she would return. She had to. The dog, the man, the quiet bravery they shared. It was a world she wanted to be part of, a story she wanted to continue. Eleanor's heart was still racing from the events of the previous days. She had returned to the park more times than she could count, drawn by the pull of Titan and Marco. Each visit felt like stepping into a world where time slowed, where the simple presence of the massive Doberman and the gentle man who owned him could quiet all her worries. Today, however, felt different. There was an unusual tension in the air, subtle but unmistakable, like the calm before a storm. She arrived to see Titan standing alert, ears forward, eyes scanning the path with precision. Marco was nearby, tossing a small ball for the dog but watching Elena with a careful, almost protective gaze. She smiled, a mixture of nervousness and excitement stirring in her chest. "Hi," she called softly, her voice slightly trembling despite herself. Titan barked once as if greeting her, then trotted over, brushing against her legs. Marco nodded in acknowledgement, his expression softening as Elena crouched to pet Titan. "You're back early today," he said, a hint of curiosity in his tone. Elena shrugged, unable to hide the eagerness in her eyes. "I couldn't wait," she admitted. Titan wagged his tail vigorously, his energy contagious, and Elena laughed, feeling her heart lift. The morning passed peacefully at first. Titan ran ahead, chasing leaves and sniffing every corner of the park, while Elena and Marco walked slowly. Their conversation light but intimate. They talked about simple things, favorite books, small memories from childhood, the way sunlight felt through trees, but beneath the surface, there was a tension, a connection neither of them could fully name. Every glance held more meaning than they dared to speak aloud. Suddenly, a loud commotion erupted near the far edge of the park. A man had stumbled over a hidden tree root, and his backpack spilled onto the ground, scattering papers everywhere. Titan froze instantly, muscles coiled, ears alert. Marco's stance changed too, his body shifting subtly as he stepped protectively toward the noise. Elena's pulse quickened. She had seen Titan's bravery before, but now, the situation felt real, urgent. A shadowy figure loomed near the fallen man, moving quickly, almost too quickly, and Elena instinctively took a step back. Titan's low growl rolled from his throat, deep and commanding, yet controlled. He positioned himself between the stranger and the man on the ground, eyes locked on the potential threat. Marco's voice rang out, calm but authoritative. "Back off." The tone carried an unshakable confidence, and Elena felt the hairs on her arms rise. The figure hesitated, Titan's protective stance and Marco's calm authority creating an invisible barrier of courage. Eleanor's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the dog's muscles ripple under his sleek black coat, every movement precise and purposeful. She realized then that Titan's bravery wasn't just physical. It was instinctive, loyal, and unwavering. Marco reinforced that bravery with his own presence, steady and commanding, but never aggressive. The stranger quickly retreated, realizing the danger was real, leaving the fallen man unharmed. Titan's growls softened, and he trotted back to Elena, brushing against her leg, as if checking she was okay. Marco exhaled and straightened, his expression calm but tinged with relief. Eleanor's chest heaved with a mix of awe, fear, and admiration. She had never witnessed such controlled courage before, and the experience left a lasting impression on her heart. "You're incredible," Elena said softly, crouching to stroke Titan's head. The dog leaned into her touch, his warm body radiating a comforting strength. She looked up at Marco, meeting his eyes for the first time fully, and felt a warmth spreading through her chest. "Both of you, you're amazing." Marco's lips curved into a small, almost shy smile. We do what we have to," he said quietly. "Titan always knows when to step in, and I just try to keep up." Elena could see the humility in his words, the quiet pride that wasn't loud but deeply felt. She realized she was drawn not only to Titan's physical bravery, but to Marco's gentle courage, the kind that protected without needing to dominate, that commanded respect without forcing it. The fallen man gathered his belongings and gave a grateful nod to both of them. "Thank you," he said, voice sincere, a hint of awe in his tone. Titan wagged his tail, and Marco nodded politely in return. Elena felt a small shiver of admiration and something deeper, an emotional pull she hadn't expected. This was more than just witnessing bravery. It was a moment that touched her heart in ways she didn't fully understand yet. As the park returned to its quiet rhythm, Elena and Marco walked together, Titan pacing calmly by their side. There was a charged silence, a shared awareness of what had just happened, and yet neither spoke at length. The tension had not dissipated entirely. Instead, it lingered, subtle, like a gentle echo of excitement and danger. Elena felt the flutter of something she hadn't felt in years: hope, curiosity, and a tender longing. "You really have a bond," she said softly, finally breaking the quiet. "With Titan? With everything?" Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of her emotions. Marco glanced at her, the faintest trace of a blush coloring his cheeks. "It's not just him," he replied quietly. "It's everything we do together. It's trust, understanding, timing, and maybe a little luck." Elena smiled, feeling her chest tighten in a gentle ache of admiration and curiosity. She realized that this connection, this shared moment of bravery and trust, had awakened something in her. It wasn't just the thrill of the event, it was the way Marco had handled it, the way Titan had instinctively protected, the unspoken understanding that formed between the three of them. She wanted to be part of that world, to see it again, to feel it again. Titan nudged her hand with his nose, bringing her attention back to the present. She laughed softly, a sound full of relief and warmth. Marco looked at her, and for a moment their eyes met in a silent exchange, acknowledging the bond that had been growing quietly over these days. Elena felt a flutter of anticipation in her heart. She wanted to speak, to say something meaningful, but the words felt too vulnerable. Instead, she smiled, and Marco returned the gesture, a faint, tender expression that held more than words could capture. The sun began to sink behind the trees, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. The park felt serene again, but the events of the morning left a lingering sense of wonder and awe. Elena knew she wouldn't leave today without feeling that pull again, that invisible thread drawing her back. She had witnessed courage, loyalty, and trust qualities that resonated deeply within her. And she had felt something else too, a quiet spark of connection with Marco, subtle but undeniable as they walked toward the park exit, Titan trotting happily beside them. Elena realized she didn't want to leave. She wanted to stay in this moment, this world of gentle bravery and quiet romance, where a massive dog and a gentle man had shown her a glimpse of something extraordinary. She knew she would return not just for Titan, but for Marco too. Marco glanced at her, reading her unspoken thought. "You'll come back, won't you?" he asked softly, almost teasing, almost hopeful. Elena nodded, her heart light and full. "I will," she said, voice firm yet gentle. "I want to." Titan barked once, as if approving the promise, and Elena felt a warmth spread through her chest, a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in a long time. The day had tested courage and loyalty, had shown her bravery in both its physical and emotional forms, and had left her longing for more moments, more shared silences, more gentle touches.